Little Lessons for Life, number 4. Believe you can. I'd like to draw your attention to this exceptional photo of a magnificent horse in the middle of a jump. He is literally flying over this double hurdle and clearing it impressively. A particularly difficult feat and a beautiful sight to behold. I was inspired by this photo because it shows me a beautiful creature intent on meeting a challenge and conquering it. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of a quote by a woman named Dorothea Brand. She said, quote, "Act as if it were impossible to fail." End of quote. Now, it's obvious to me that the horse in this picture believed he could fly over this hurdle with room to spare. In fact, that's the only reason he is doing it successfully. I found that looking at this picture and dwelling on it encouraged me to challenge myself to do the same, and I'm passing on that challenge. Whatever it is in your life that you need to or even want to accomplish successfully, believe that you can do it. See yourself doing it. Throw your heart over the hurdles that look like they could hinder you. A famous trapeze artist from 2 generations ago was training a new student who one day suddenly was overcome with fear as he looked at the precarious perch from which he would have to perform. He froze and couldn't move a muscle, and he began to gasp, "I can't do it. I can't do it." The longtime veteran who was helping train him put his arm around him and said to him, "Yes, son, you can do it, and I will tell you how. You throw your heart over the bar, and your body will follow." You know, that premise has no doubt been a priceless tool in training many a trapeze artist, but it is actually much more than a premise. The Word of God tells us basically the same thing in Proverbs 23:7, which says of a man, "As he thinketh in his heart, so is he." In other words, whatever you truly believe about yourself, you become. And whatever you truly believe you can do, you can do. Romans chapter 12 goes even further into the importance of what we think, because in verse 2, the Lord makes a point of telling us we must not be conformed to this world, but we must be transformed by the renewing of our minds. It's the Word of God that renews our minds and helps us learn to think the way God thinks. The Lord tells us repeatedly in His Word that nothing is impossible with Him, and He admonishes us in Philippians chapter 4 with these words, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Now, of course, that statement presupposes that what we are trying to do is something that will please Christ and not something against His nature. But assuming our efforts are toward godly goals, we can believe firmly that we can accomplish every one of them. The horse in our picture believed he could make that jump with plenty of room to spare, so he did. He simply acted on what he believed. He threw his heart over the bar, and the rest of him followed. When you go through a difficult situation in your life and find yourself facing the challenge of doing something that looks a little too big or a little too high for you, don't stagger at the hurdle. Remember that you can do all things if Christ is in you and you've learned to think as He thinks. When the hurdles look too high, come back and take a long look at this photo. Meditate on it. Let it stir your heart. Then throw your heart over the hurdle of that problem and follow it. Obey Dorothea Brand's wise words. Act as if it were impossible to fail.